Hey everyone, my name is Neal Karski, and I'm the CEO of Patient Engine, a seven-figure digital marketing, lead conversion, and coaching agency for high-ticket aesthetics providers. And I would like to personally welcome you to the Aesthetics Millionaires Show, where we sit down with industry entrepreneurs to talk about their personal journeys and discuss proven growth strategies. My genuine hope is that through this podcast, we can create more success stories in this industry and help more business owners scale past their competition. Enjoy the show. Ladies and gentlemen, another special episode of Aesthetics Millionaires Show on YouTube and Spotify. Today, I'm joined by a very special guest. She's an Oklahoma-based injector. Her name's Lacey McCrary. She's the co-founder of BellaDerma Medical Spa and Aesthetics in Shawnee, Oklahoma. Welcome to the show, Lacey. Thank you so much for hopping on with me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Let's dive right into it. How did you get into this industry? How did you get into the entrepreneurship path?
So my dad was actually an entrepreneur, so it's probably just something that was kind of bred into me. But getting into aesthetics, like I'd always wanted to be in aesthetics medicine. It's just actually pretty hard to break into. I had actually been doing primary care and urgent care for 8 or 9 years, and I was let go from my job. I found a different job in primary care and I hated it. It was during COVID. I was pregnant. And then I found out about an opportunity for an aesthetics position at the local hospital. They actually had kind of an aesthetics clinic and landed the right email. One of my good friends I graduated with actually knew the boss. So I was able to interview and hired on the spot. But then it was about 4 months before I got to come on because it was during COVID. And then I worked for 4 weeks and then had a baby. And so then came back and we did that for a little while. And to be honest, it just didn't work inside of a corporate facility, inside of like a hospital base. It just had lots of complications. Advertising was very limited, lots of things I couldn't do. And so my medical director and I started talking about it and we decided to break out private. But actually, his wife is my business partner. She's an industrial engineer and used to put in surgical suites. So she's my business partner. She's kind of the numbers and our own little CPA behind the scenes here. And then he's our medical director.
Beautiful. So tell me a little bit more about how those initial days where you were like, what name do we kind of come up with, right? Like, what is our brand strategy going to be? What are we going to start off with? Do we think there's going to be demand in this town? How did you guys kind of put your heads together and your hearts together really to get to a point where like, okay, we're pretty confident we can do this. That's one. We kind of know what our strategy is going to be and look like, and we're going to do this.
So actually, my medical director had come up with BellaDerma. It actually means beautiful skin. About 2 years before I came into the scene, he had bought a laser to start doing that on the side. And because of his non-compete, the hospital actually came back at the last minute and said, no, that goes against your non-compete. We're going to put it in house and then we'll lease it from you. So by the time I came on, they had lots of staffing issues again because it just does not work inside of a corporate facility. And so when I came on, they were known kind of on social media as one thing, but their name was another associated with the hospital for advertising reasons. So when we decided to break out private, we just kept the name for simplicity. It was just too much to try to then rebrand again. We are actually maybe in the future going to get a bigger space and we're thinking about rebranding then just for something that's more modern and fits us better now that we kind of know who we are. But yeah, I had started building a patient list there, patient base, whenever I was at SSM and people started to know me and trust me. And so whenever we did decide, I kind of just knew I had to take the risk. I wasn't happy doing what I was doing. I didn't want to go back to primary care. And it was after COVID. And during COVID, I don't know, it just kind of made you realize that inside corporate facilities like that, you're just a number. Like no one knew my name. No one knew what I was doing except my local people. And their corporate goes all the way up through different states. And so I just was very unhappy with being treated like a number. And so whenever we decided to break off private, I knew that I could do it. I knew it may end up being just me. Injecting and all the things. I didn't really know how big we were going to get. But I think my dad instilled that in me. I just knew I wasn't going to give it up. I could do it.
Um, that's awesome. That's great. And so walk us through like the first, like the first initial days. Like, was it just injectables? Did you guys add other stuff? Um, how did you get this thing off the ground from a standpoint of like marketing? What were some of these like early lessons that helped you get to where you are today as well?
Yeah, so whenever I worked at the local hospital, all they had was a laser, but they called themselves an aesthetics clinic. So I brought on injectables and there. And to be honest, doing injectables in a small town is very nerve wracking. I had no one else I could call and ask for help, no one that could back me up. I said lots of prayers. Um, One of the nurses that worked with me then laughs. Now she works for me now. She would laugh because, I was injecting the higher ups at this hospital and I would call and be like, please pray for their Botox to turn out okay. And she used to make fun of me for that. And then she came on working for me and now she's injecting and she'd say, okay, please pray for their Botox. And I was like, I told you that it works. You have to pray for it to turn out right. Um, but whenever we broke out private, like during the early days here, there were days, where we had big gaps in our schedules. And now I don't hardly ever have that. That's kind of why we're doing this on my lunch hour. There's not a lot of places in our town to market. I will say that. So it's been a lot of social media, a lot of word of mouth. There's a local little basketball team here that we're going to start with it's called the Potawatomi Fire. We're going to start working with the Fire Girls. So just little things like that, trying to put our name out there. We still have people every week that are like, oh, I didn't even know you were here because there's nowhere to advertise in Shawnee.
So you were doing injectables and laser initially?
Yes. Yeah. And I don't run the laser anymore. I do all of the consults, but my RN runs the laser.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And so let's walk everybody through like the first, I don't know, maybe call it a year. Like how long did it take you to get to like, I would say the big pillars, your first customer obviously is always huge. Then you get your 10K, then you get your 20K, then you get your 50K, then you get your like 80 to 100K, right? And then so on.
Yeah.
So how did you get to like the first like 10, 20K? Because I think that's like, to me, it's probably one of the hardest leaps, because you're kind of like sitting in an empty room and you're like, all right, what do I do now? Um, so I would love to hear a little bit more of that, because I think that's where you get really challenged, right? Where you're like, is this going to work out? Okay, it's going to work out. But how is it going to work out? What actions do I need to take to make impact? How do I get people to come back? How do I get more new clients? How do I get consistent revenue? How do I get consistent visibility? So that way I can just, make this work.
Yeah, I think it is very challenging. It's still challenging. But like I did bring a clientele with me over here. So it wasn't like I just had no patients on my first day. I basically was still seeing patients there and then transferred over here. Now, my other staff that we had brought on didn't have any patients. So it was just me for a long time bringing in the money. And I could see them climbing, but it just wasn't there. Like the procedures I do bring in a lot more money. And I can remember like when we made our first 3,000 here and I thought that was wild. I was like, wow, somebody spent $3,000 here. And then, yeah, we've had a lot of steady growth every year. Every year, we can look back and I can remember when we were making, 60,000 and when we hit like 80 and we're just slowly climbing every month. And it's been awesome to watch that. I will say I feel like part of what helps that is social media. I try to keep my Instagram. It's hard coming up with content, but I try to keep it educational and give people things that they want to see. In the small town that we're in, too, I say I get a lot of like even just skincare naive people. They don't even wash their face. So I have to really educate a lot. And we have to start kind of simple. I always say we're about 18 months behind out here from like the metro part. So I have to really do a lot of education on how filler can be natural and neurotoxins and things like that. But yeah, I think just having a good staff that I trust, and that has come with its challenges too. And then social media is what really has helped us grow the most. And word of mouth, one of the things I kind of did early on too was I started having these Botox parties after hours, and there would be 10 or 20 people that would come. And then a lot of them are still my consistent patients today, and they do other things with me now too. And I don't even do the Botox parties anymore. I actually gave that to my other nurse, and then now we have 4 or 5 of them left that we incorporate in a week in a party.
As a social media entrepreneur, I'll say that the in-person connection and those types of activations are I mean, they're just it's hard to replace that, right?
Yes.
So I think that's great. I think I've heard many of similar stories, many stories that were a little bit different, but a lot of times in the beginning, you have to put yourself out there, right? Because you don't know how to do content. Maybe you don't have a partner who can help you run ads. So you figure out what's working for you for your particular market and your business model, and just putting yourself out there in front of people and getting people together and started generating that in-person experience and connection can really help you make that leap. Tell me about that $3,000 sale. Like what did you guys say? What did you guys sell? How did it feel? What did you guys do? Because was it like a treatment plan or something like that you sold?
I don't even think it was one person. I think it was like a couple of people. So now looking back at that, I can sell 3,000 to one person now. But yeah, I just remember when we hit that, it was like, oh my gosh, because our first few days would be like 200, 500, that's coming in. And then when we hit the 3,000, it was wild to think, oh wow. And even my business partner and I still are like, we can't believe people spend this amount of money here every month, but we're so glad they do. But also, I think though, like I believe in myself, I believe in the care that we're providing. So my patients believe in that. I'm not selling them, I'm helping them.
Yeah, but you are selling them too.
Well, I mean, you have to a little bit, or my doors would close.
For sure. How did you learn, you know, we talk about sales a lot in my circle, in my company, in social media, and my friends, but and on this podcast. But how did you how did you learn the art of sales, right? Because genuinely, like you can call it educating, you can helping people, and I do believe those are adjectives that could I'm sorry, verbs that could really replace the term sales, right? But ultimately what we're doing is we're selling. We're definitely selling. So how did you learn how to sell?
Honestly, I wasn't really that great at it at first, like doing like full face consults and things like that. It's just gotten more natural over time. I've taken a lot of trainings with a lot of different people. I watch a lot of things on social media, a lot of educational things, and that is probably more how I learned. I really was not very good at it. And to be honest with you, I didn't even put myself out there on social media, like my face and talking until like 18 months ago. I just could not do it. I think I was so afraid of saying something wrong or being judged, or, I care way too much about people's opinions. And I've just gotten better with that. I think being a business owner has made me better with that. But I think part of my art of selling is also being able to say no. It makes people trust you more when you're not just trying to upsell them on every little thing. When I'm like, no, I actually don't think that treatment will be the best for you. And I think something that costs less will be the best for you. Being genuine, being honest, and giving the patient the best outcome, no matter what the revenue is kind of the best way to sell, honestly, because you're gaining their trust and then they're going to believe what you say.
1,000%, 1,000%. Um, it's so interesting because um, in our agency, we have people that come to us that have had conversations with other agencies and their salespeople who are just like, you can just clearly tell they have commission breath and they're just making these outlandish promises. And it's like, and it's tarnishing. It's tarnished. Like people hate marketing agencies. And it's tarnished that business model. And when they come to us, I think it's like a breath of fresh air, because we're kind of like, hey, no, listen, like you're kind of getting in a la la land here. We need to bring you back. We need to bring you back to reality. Like this is how much you should expect to pay to acquire a new patient in this type of market. And setting the right honest expectations allows us to, one, filter the wrong type of clients, and then attract more of the right type of clients too. And they really do appreciate it, because I'm sure you're a business owner, you've gotten hit with a ton of ads, and we can get you 600 patients in a month, right? Like, is it,
Yes.
and it's like, is that possible? Yeah, it's possible if you spend $50,000, right? Like, so ultimately, I like what you said about setting the right expectations, and because it genuinely makes for a better conversation, especially in today's saturated world where people have so many options. They get bombarded by so many different ads, right? By so many different providers, not just like aesthetics, but so many different things, right? E-commerce, all that stuff. So, um, how did you then? How were you able to train and pass down and trickle down that mentality, that skill set to your staff?
That's something that, I feel like you're working on all the time too, is that mentality. Is a lot of my staff is afraid to put their self out there. And I have to remember that I was too, but also try to encourage them, because I tell them, like, putting yourself out there, for one, is what makes people see your face and they trust you. Yeah, I can talk about the procedures that you do, but they want to know you. They want to see you. And I also try to align myself with staff that has the same values as I do. Sometimes that's trial and error with staff. They don't always stay, and that's okay. But I think you have to really hone in on your team. And then another thing I have to like instill in them is their confidence, especially my nurse that's working with me now. And I didn't have that confidence either, but I think trying to learn to be a good leader and help her see her value is one thing. And so teaching them all of that, teaching them the importance of it. I spoke on a panel this weekend and I was saying, one of the other things I have to remember is my boundary of, this isn't their business, so I can't expect their heart to be in it like mine. I can't expect good work ethic from them, but I can't expect them to sleep and breathe it, 24 hours a
No
day.
one's
Like,
gonna ever sell the way like a founder sells, right?
that's the names on it.
For sure, because you have the conviction, you have the ownership, you have um the sweat equity you put into it. There's a lot more in the line, I think. So I think even you're gonna out motivate people for sure, and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
you have the knowledge, you have the education and experience. I get it. I've sold
yeah.
millions of dollars in my agency, and finding a replacement for me has been really difficult. Um,
It is. It's hard.
and we recently got somebody. I recently hired actually a female closer, and she's great. And she was like, "Hey, Neal, I just want to close better than you." And I was like, "Rock and roll," Like I welcome that challenge. Right, that's a good challenge to have, because that shows motivation and confidence. But you're totally spot on, I think. But at the same time, understanding that like no one maybe is ever as good as you, want to try to get him as close as possible, right?
Yeah, and you do want them to grow, that's the whole point of this. And I mean, I'm a Christian and I feel like I'm in a leadership role, not just for my business, but to kind of mentor people. And you want to see them grow. You want to see, if you're not growing like personally, then you're kind of missing the mark of the whole thing that God has given you anyway. Another thing that I was going to point out that had kind of changed just for me as I've grown is I used to, it's not that I wanted to be the cheapest, but I wanted everyone to come in my door. And then as I've grown and learned things, like, I don't want to be the cheapest. And it's fine if this person isn't for me. I'm not everyone's style, I guess I should say. And that's okay. You don't want to be that, because then you're going to end up with someone who's unhappy or you don't like the result you delivered. And you definitely don't want to be the cheapest. You want to be quality. And that has changed for me in time and in the beginning.
Yeah. Um, Interesting. Okay. So, what is your thought on like meeting people where they're at with like their budget as well? Because like I have people, you know, ultimately it's like we have to ask ourselves, right? Like, do we just turn these people down, or do we kind of meet them where they're at, right? And it's like, it's tough to have like 100% ideal clients. It's tough to make sure like everybody's gonna have the right, you know, type of budgets for you and stuff like that. I know, you know, in my spas as well, I run body sculpting spas, and sometimes, you know, these packages can be very, very hefty, and if somebody can't finance, we kind of need to meet them halfway. And I know that sometimes that's not going to help them accomplish the best results, but it gets them a lot of the way there, and hopefully they can continue. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so actually where we're at, we have to do that a lot, like being in a small town. And like I said, and everyone's a little bit behind like the metro area as far as what they're wanting to do. And then even financially, like we're not the same out here that you are when you're in the metro. I actually had worked at another place there, and there were people coming in with unlimited budgets and just do whatever you want. Well, I don't get that near as often here. I get someone coming in that's like, I have $200. What could you do? So normally it's a couple of different things. Yeah, I will meet them where they're at. I will be like, okay, well, I can do this. And we take all of the rewards programs too. So I try to get them as many discounts as I can. But again, it comes back to realistic expectations. If what they're asking for in their budget isn't even going to kind of make a difference, I'm going to say, hey, I want you to save your money and just start saving for this, and then come back when I can actually make a difference. Um, because if I can't even make a change at all, then I don't want them to spend the money, because again, they're going to be unhappy and then I'm going to be responsible for something. But I just have to set realistic expectations. But I work with their budget all the time, whether that be neurotoxin or a really big procedure. We do talk about that. And then we do take financing options. And so a lot of them will know that.
Have you been tracking your KPIs, like average transaction value, annual patient value? Have you gotten to the point where you're like financially to spot on to a T? Where are you right now?
So my business partner does all of that. That is basically, she's our own little in-house CPA, and she does do all of that. Now I look on the daily kind of what we're doing, and then we'll sit down every quarter or so and kind of talk about it a little more in depth. But I don't keep up with it. Like she literally keeps up with it daily. She sits down every day and tracks every single procedure. So she's more of the numbers when it comes to that. But yeah, we've been tracking those for a while. And
Gotcha.
like rebooking rate and all of that.
Gotcha. Because I'm always curious to see, you know, where everybody's at. Like, you know, those are really important things to know, right? Financially,
Yes.
it's really key to understand. I don't have a business partner, but I see a lot in this industry. Like my next guest, for example, she comes from the aesthetics medical field, and then her business partner is just comes from sales or marketing. So it's those that typically creates a really good union. Um,
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about the journey from like, you know, 20,000 to like 50,000, where you felt like you guys were building more traction, where you were implementing like SOPs, where things kind of just like started making a little bit more sense. You get some profits in the door, etc.
Yeah, I think that honestly, it's been about 2 years, I think. We had actually started working with a business consultant, and she's who helped us with all of that. We had went out to AmSpa in Vegas, and I mean, we were just right there where we wanted to be, but we didn't know where to go with the business from there. Like, do we go advertising? Are we getting a new system that can do more? Like, what's the options? And after we talked to them, we started working with a business consultant who really started putting some of that more in place. We had, our policies and things. She's our HR too, but we really needed to clean those up to hire more staff. When we first started, our laser was running 1 to 2 days a week. Now we have someone here 4 days. We're just seeing patients Tuesday through Friday. We don't see patients on Mondays. Our office is open, but we don't see patients. And so now we're all here 4 days a week. We've hired another nurse practitioner on our wellness side, and I will say that's probably also what really helped us rise, was putting like whole body health together, like peptides, weight loss, pellets. Now I did pellets and weight loss when I started here, but my schedule just got way too busy on the aesthetic side. So we hired her full time, and she does all of that. And I would say just implementing each one of those. So it was about 2 years ago, probably, when we really started putting our SOPs and our policies and trying to make sure that, like, when someone walks in the door, they have the same experience, no matter who they're seeing, basically.
Was that when kind of the breakthrough when occurred with like more growth too?
Yes, that is probably about 4 to 6 months after we started working with her. Probably towards the end of that year is when we really started seeing it more. And then last year was just very steady, the whole year, steady growth. And then even this year already, we launched Surf in January, and that really went big for us. In 4 days, I answered over 500 messages, people wanting to know about Surf. So it
Wow.
was wild. But I've also, like, on the backside, been working on our SEO and things like that, and doing, blog posts and things. And I really think that that's all helped too.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
What's your advice to people who have a business partner to maintain like a really healthy, strong relationship where there's like alignment on goals, alignment on execution, alignment on ownership and responsibilities?
Yeah, even now, the further that we are into this and the more growth that we have, we find things like from the beginning that we didn't even really line out clearly. So I say from the beginning, kind of line some of that out. We just kind of went with it, and it honestly has just kind of worked. But there have been opportunities, where if we had let it, it could have caused friction between us. And so I think just having that open communication and not on the fly, like, it's just like a relationship. Be intentional to sit down and communicate and talk about what you're doing. And then, normally at the end of the year, we'll try to do like our 1 year goal and 5 year goals and see where we line up with all of that. And we are on very different trajectories. Her kids are older and going to graduate high school, her last one in the next 2 years, and my kids are 8 and 5. So that's something we know in the future we're going to have to kind of grow and change and reevaluate again.
Beautiful. Um, so what are some of those goals? Um, I know you guys are doing extremely well right now. You're staying booked. Are we going to open up another day to accommodate more patients? What's going on? Are we going to hire more people? Are we going to add more services? What's the game plan here?
Some of all of that, honestly. I don't know if I personally want to be here 5 days a week, every week. I love the 4 day work week, and Mondays I kind of do my admin stuff and take care of my kids and all of that. But yeah, we're looking at opening up some Mondays. We thought about by the end of this year, we'd hire another RN, and maybe, another year from now. We need a bigger space. We are outgrowing this one. So we're going to max out of this one in a year or 18 months. So we're kind of tossing that around, seeing what we want to do there. I used to think that I wanted a second location, but now I think I just want to, I don't know. God will be in control of that. But I feel like I just want to just grow this one really big versus trying to manage two, because managing one is hard enough. And then if you're split in two places and two different staff, um, quality over quantity.
Quality over quantity. So where's the limit? Where's this? What's they say sky's the limit, but where's the limit? Like, or where's what's on the horizon as far as like, you know, I think if we're not growing, we're probably falling behind a little bit, right? Because there's always going to be competition. People, I mean, you know how trendy it is to own a medical aesthetics business these days, right? But you know, a lot of people may not take it as seriously, but it certainly creates at least a distortion of competition. But what is like, where do you feel like you need to really move the needle so you guys can continue to lead the way in your market to make sure that that the business is growing without breaking the machine?
Yeah, I think for me, there's really not going to be an upper limit. Like, I'm going to keep going and get as big as we can. I feel like my limitations will be more on where we're at, like where we're located, because we are in a small town. And maybe it will and maybe it won't. But I think for us, the biggest focus, not just on quality, but is I don't want to be trendy, first of all. I'm a nurse practitioner. I've been a nurse practitioner almost 15 years. I'm not in aesthetic medicine to be trendy or have a reel go viral or be popular. I'm in it to help my patients. And that means inside out. And I think the biggest place that we're headed is true medical aesthetics and wellness. And like when you combine those together, you get a lot better outcomes. It's not about vanity, it's not about looking pretty, but you really can feel as good as you look or look as good as you feel, either one. And so that's kind of the market of where we're going is, hey, we don't want to be trendy, we want to be knowledgeable, and we want to work from the inside out.
Um, what would you say were like the three biggest pillars that helped you get to that 7-figure run rate that everybody wants to get to in this industry?
Three biggest. Well, one of the most
Let's start
recent
with
ones, like I
let's start with
said,
one like the biggest, and then that'll
um,
probably open up a little bit of space for the others.
honestly, I think it's relationships is probably the biggest one. Forming relationships with people. People trust you. People recommend you when they trust you. And you have to really not treat people like they're a herd of cattle coming in and coming out. Yeah, I could probably book my schedule a whole lot more, but I want enough time to spend with people. And sometimes that comes in the form of listening to life stories and testimonies and things like that. It's not always just, hey, let me put some neurotoxin in your face and you're out the door in 20 minutes. So I definitely think the relationships, especially probably because we're in a small town, the relationships are even bigger. The other thing would be like getting out in your community. I didn't really realize how important that was until I owned a business. So when you own a small business, it's super important to support small and local. I have figured that
Two more.
out. I would say the other one is a social media presence, like we talked about. As much as I didn't want to do it, as much as I dreaded that, people would much rather see your face and hear you speak about something that you know about with authority than watch a picture or a funny reel. Or I tell my social media girl, I'm like, funny reels are great, but they do nothing for our patient population except give them a laugh. So that's kind of lower on my scale of what I want on social media. So I would say social media is number two. And then number three, I think, is just treating people with integrity. Like there are many times I say no. There are many times that I don't want a refund, but if we've come into a problem or this or that, like I don't like to refund. It's not the end of the world, but I want the patient to be happy and I want them to have the right treatment. And if we've changed our mind and this one's less, then yeah, you're getting a credit on your account. I'm not this isn't Walmart. I don't have black and white policies. I have policies I try to live by, but I'm treating a patient, not a policy.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah.
I think it's important to have flexibility with pricing, with some policies, right? You have your non-negotiables, of course, but just a little bit. And I'll say this, like in my spas, like as far as like treatment plans, like if we need to meet a client a little bit closer, and whether it's giving them a little bit more of a price break or on a treatment plan or adding more treatments to raise the value of what we're selling, then we'll do it. I want to earn that relationship, right? And I want to keep that
Yeah.
relationship because they have options. They don't know me anything.
Yeah, and we definitely do that. I just try not to advertise that because you'll have several of them coming in. Well, my friend got, XYZ because we're in a small town. So I have to be careful with some of that.
Yeah, true.
We're in a very small town. Everybody knows everybody.
Yeah, that's funny. Let's talk about let's talk a little bit more about some more key lessons um around um around marketing. you said you had started doing content and it helped you, and then you realized, hey, I need to do educational content and not just focus on. I always tell people, like, I don't get a whole ton of views, but I get the right views because I
Mhm.
want, my audience is um, uh, aesthetics business owners, right? That's my
Mhm.
audience. And I want, if I have 500 views, but 100 of those are aesthetics business owners, amazing. But if I
Yeah.
have 1 million views and it's only 10 aesthetics business owners, then who cares, right? So
Yeah.
focusing on impact over impressions is super important. What would you add to that?
Yeah, I think that you have to know your clientele, know your region, know where you're at, and kind of know what you're targeting. I am the same way. I used to always say, well, if social media doesn't bring me in any patients, then why am I doing it, kind of thing. But if you're targeting the right people, and you're getting the right followers and that sort of thing, it is going to bring you business. I have people message me all the time. And it's quality things that I'm posting, not controversial, not funny, not, I'm targeting to educate these people on what this is, because then they may be like, oh, well, that's what I need, and they don't know the brands of all of these things. So you really got to break it down on what it is and what it does. So that's really important. And then also, I didn't realize how important like your website is. Yeah, our website is fine, but after I started working on all the SEO and stuff, I've got to make some changes to it so it'll hit that Google more, because those are the things you care about when you Google, a procedure in your town. You want to make sure you're popping up, and so when there's nowhere else to advertise, those are the things you have to do: social media and your SEO.
Definitely, definitely. And then we need to talk about paid ads. Because paid advertising is absolutely amazing. At least, I went into new markets with a lot of competition, and paid ads has been absolutely essential for growth. As far as like, smaller markets, if people are in the smaller markets, what do you feel like how do you you can say that even in smaller markets, you said that Zerf, like treatments like that are getting a lot of publicity, like it's hitting the smaller markets, public ear, I'll call it. So how are you catering to to your market a little bit differently, as if you would if you're in a major city?
Honestly, we normally have our prices just a little bit lower than in the city, so we can meet people where they're at. With Surf, we haven't had to at all. We just, again, I'd been working on the SEO, and to be honest, the Surf kind of went off because it was a perfect storm. We launched it like on a Thursday, and it was either Thursday or Friday that the snow hit here. So everyone was at home for 4 days on their phone, while all we were doing was posting everything about Surf, all these before and afters, and that sort of thing. So, a lot of my market too is going to like more natural type of things, collagen building, things like that. So that's definitely where I try to be mindful what we bring in will target my market better. Then that's kind of where Zerf came in.
Yeah. Um, Wrapping things all up a little bit, what type of advice would you give to entrepreneurs in this space, that you kind of live by to this very day?
I think one of the biggest things that I have learned, well, is that business is going to grow you more as a person than anything else ever will, probably outside of motherhood. But only if you let it. Like, you have to be willing to self-reflect, look inward at like what part you played with your employees, or if something failed or launch failed or something like that. You have to be self-reflective, and you have to be willing to grow. It's not comfortable. It's not always fun. It's not fun when I get it wrong. But I think as an entrepreneur, like, you are in this position to lead people, and that includes you growing as well.
It's amazing. Let's get one more question in, that is totally unrelated. What is your oh man, I was trying to make things a little controversial, but well, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. What is your biggest pet peeve about your husband? Hopefully he doesn't listen to this, or
My
maybe he
biggest
will.
is time management. That's my biggest pet peeve.
Time
His time
management. What's his
management.
name?
Alan.
Come on, Alan. What is his biggest pet peeve with you?
That I don't ever forget anything. He hates that I can remember everything.
All right, we got to work on that together, guys.
Yeah.
What is your favorite place do you reset? Not in Oklahoma, or maybe in Oklahoma. That's outside of your home or your work.
My favorite place,
Yes.
the lake. It's in Oklahoma, but the lake.
Beautiful. And if people want to connect with you and mastermind and have a conversation with you, I know that building a strong community in this industry is very important, and we don't get to see each other as often as we'd like, and have conversations that are meaningful and impactful. But if people want to connect with you, how can they do that, Lacey?
Probably just through social media is the easiest. Most everyone around here has my phone number too. So, but yeah, I'm Injection Perfectionist Lacey on Instagram.
Injection Perfectionist Lacey on Instagram. All right, Lacey, thank you so much for joining us on the show. This is super valuable. I think everybody's going to relate. A lot of people are going to relate to your story, and we certainly wish you the best.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.